There he is, right there. Thanks for being with us. It is Thursday afternoon, about 1:40. We'll be with you for probably a pretty short one today. Not a whole lot going on. We'll talk about different things. It's kind of the calm before the storm. Things about to pick up considerably next week when the calendar turns to June. I think that happens on Tuesday, I think. So Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever that is, when the calendar turns to June, things will definitely begin to change. Not just in Oxford, but campuses all over the country, as kids can take visits without getting in trouble and all of that stuff. So it'll be a pretty active June, like it always used to be pre-COVID. It'll be even more active this year, as there's a lot of catching up to do on the recruiting trail. So we'll talk about those things and more. First, I want to tell you that we're brought to you each and every week by the College Corner. It's your one-stop Rebel Shop with 2 locations in the Jackson, Mississippi area. In Ridgeland, the College Corner is next to Fleet Feet. In Flowood, it's next to Half Shell. If you don't live in Jackson, it's not a problem. You can visit the College Corner at collegecornerstore.com. Plus, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. So whether you're tailgating in Oxford or home gating with friends and family, the College Corner has you covered for game day with the largest selection of Rebel gear in central Mississippi. I'm coming to you from the Clark Ford Studios. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is that number. Call it. Ask for my buddy Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for, and he'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is completely up to you. You can shop it around, or you can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. 662-257-1900. Zach, how are you?
Neal, it's been a while. How's it going?
It's been a while. How was your vacation?
It was great. Double red flags the whole week.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, we've discussed this before, does not apply or matter to me because I'm not getting in the water. But it was pretty rough. If you wanting to get out and shred some waves, you could have done it down in Florida. Pretty windy, but I had some really good seafood and some good R&R. It was a good time.
Yeah, I like the beach, man. And I'm with you. I'll get in the water some, but I don't get in it much because I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm getting into somebody else's home, and they might not want me there. So I'm careful.
Yeah.
I'm careful about that, but I enjoy the beach immensely. I enjoy just kind of laying there, getting some sun, listening to the waves. I'll read a book, crack open a few beers, just kind of chill. There's something about reading a book at the beach that I really like. Like Jay Tate makes fun of me all the time for saying this, but I could sit and read a book for 6 hours on the beach. Zach, your connection's just not very good. There you go.
Yeah. What I was going to say was when you cross that threshold of going from the top of the food chain and then you're entering into another ecosystem immediately at the bottom, it's something that I'm not comfortable doing. And when I have control over that, I'm just going to nip it in the bud and not do it. So, but yeah, like you said, sitting there in the sand, cold drink, sun, it's good.
I don't really know what's going on in recruiting, which I know is not the way you tease a show for people to listen to, but I believe in transparency. I do think things heat up tremendously next week. I think guys have just kind of taken the month of May, and school ended, and they had practices, and people have had some spring games and things of that nature at the high school level, and now they're getting ready to go on the camp circuit and go see some schools and talk to coaches in person and take families and stuff. And so I anticipate things heating up quite a bit starting next week. Now, people are going to hear that and go, oh, you expect commitments. I didn't say anything about commitments. I just think there's going to be a lot of visits. The whole commitment thing, it's one of the questions I guess I'll ask for you because I know people ask it all the time. In the recruiting rankings today, Ole Miss is not exactly tearing it up. Do you read anything at all into that, and will you read anything into that, say, end of summer?
Not really, because as we saw on the show, and as you've seen on the board, as you've seen in 2022 prospects, 2023 prospects, a lot of it is the wait and see mode for most kids, where the canned answer that I got was, I'm just going to wait until the debt period's over. Camp season is going to pick up. Ole Miss is hosting a slew of camps in June. They're going to host people in July. I think that's when you're going to start to see the focus really narrow in to where these offers, whether they're legitimate or they're camp offers, they're going to start pinpointing on some names. They're going to start focusing on some prospects. They have an idea of who's real and who's not right now, because some kids have released top schools lists, whether that's the top 5, the top 6, the top 8, whatever. Ole Miss has made it for some big name prospects, so they're obviously focusing on those. But there are a lot of guys that they haven't seen, never met in person, so they're bringing them in. Some of the guys that I've talked to keep an eye on, particularly at quarterback. I think a name to know, if you're not familiar, I've talked about him a couple times. On the Chicks, Tevin Carter, the quarterback out of Memphis. He's a guy that didn't really mince words when I spoke with him. He was very motivated, competed at the Elite 11 in Nashville, showed out well there. He told me pretty much that he was coming to Oxford to show Lane Kiffin and Jeff Levy that he can be their guy. That was what he told me. And he's a guy that hasn't really had much going on, because in Memphis, he only played 4 games because of COVID. So he kind of, didn't fall off the radar, but I mean, there were other quarterbacks out there that had more film for coaches to look at. But this is a guy that has been recruited by a Power 5 program since he was a freshman. Jimbo Fisher offered him when he was a freshman in high school, so he knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. That's a guy that Ole Miss fans need to keep an eye on. And then Justin Martin, the Cal commit that I talked to a couple weeks ago, he wants to take a visit. Even though he's committed to Cal, he's wanting to get out and see what Oxford's like, see what the SEC offers. And that's kind of where things are right now for this staff. It's relatively new, but once they can meet prospects in person, see them perform in their camps, time them in 40s, see how they throw, see how they catch, move, that's when I think the rubber's going to meet the road, all the recruiting metaphors that you love to hear. But yeah, mid-June, July, and then getting into August is when I think you're going to see the scope really focus for this staff.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. Offensive line, defensive line, new coaches, young coaches. Jake Thornton was at Gardner-Webb, most recently Tennessee Tech before that. So the kind of prospects that you're recruiting at the SEC level are not being recruited by those schools. So it's going to be a new thing for him. Kids don't know him. So he's going to have an interesting summer, and I'm curious to see how they handle the something that's going to get used against them in recruiting a little bit, which is, hey man, you guys are going to go over there, and Jeff Levy's not going to be there, and that whole thing. They'll respond to that with, yeah, well, it's Lane Kiffin's offense, and he's going to be there, so don't worry about it. But it'll be interesting to see them kind of overcome some of that. A lot of youth on this coaching staff now. They've replaced, whether it was intentional or unintentional or coincidental or whatever, they've gone with 3 coaches, I think, either in their 20s or right at 30 in Randall Joyner's case. That is a very young coaching staff. I'm curious to see what that means from a recruiting standpoint. Typically, you associate youth with energy. You also associate youth with inexperience. And so one's a positive, one's a negative. It'll be curious to see sort of how they navigate that on the recruiting trail as everything gets heated up.
Yeah, there's a lot of youth, but the common denominator there with all of these coaches that have been hired is Power 5 experience and being under Power 5 head coaches that are very well respected. John David Baker was at Southern Cal, Clay Helton. You've got Coleman Hutzler was at Texas. Randall Joyner was at Ohio State, and then was at SMU. So he's worked with some really good coaching staffs. And then Jake Thornton, the new guy, you just mentioned him, worked at Alabama. He kind of knows how that machine works at in Tuscaloosa under Nick Saban. So I think Lane Kiffin really likes that aspect of what he brings to the table. So it's kind of here you get in here, here are your marching orders, and let's go. So kind of, don't really mess up, be that cog in the wheel that keeps things moving at a consistent pace with what they want. So a lot of youth, but I think that they're going to use that as a way to, be high energy, be very vocal on Twitter, social media. That's such a huge tool in recruiting these days. And I'm excited just to see kind of how they go about recruiting. Now that the dead period is finally over, they're going to, have an actual cycle to do their job and do what they're paid to do. So that's, for a fan base, I think Ole Miss fans should be excited for that, to see Lane Kiffin actually get to see kids in person, because he hasn't done that since 2019. So.
Yeah, well, I guess they had that kind of that one weekend or 2 weekends in February of 2020, and that's it. The pandemic hit, and it's been shut down since, and the rest. So, I'm curious to see it. I'm interested to see how it changes, if it changes, how it gets different. Frankly, at this point, I think there's a caveat that has to be said, and that is that it's very early. It's only May, but I think there is a certain degree of pressure and expectation now that comes with. Okay, not when I say this, don't misconstrue it. The excuse is gone. Now, it wasn't just an excuse; it was legit. It was a pandemic. You couldn't recruit the way you normally would recruit. Those are issues. Those are things that you have to. Those are things that you have to overcome. But now that that's going to go away next week, when the calendar turns to June, you're going to be able to bring kids to campus. You're going to be able to do those things. And now that excuse, and I'm sure they would say, thank God, now that that's gone, I am curious to see how it changes, if it changes, because like I was saying, there is a lot of pressure on them to start recruiting the type of players on a consistent level up and down the class that can compete with the Alabamas and the Texas A&Ms and the LSUs, the people that you have to beat if you want to do some of the things that they talk about doing, which is winning at a really high level. It also will make me now it's two things. That's passed. And then the second thing that is passed is the one-time no penalty transfer rule, where guys now can get involved with can transfer without penalty. And so the tampering, if you will, is going to increase even more. I'll be curious to see what that means for high school guys. Do you stop taking some of the 3-star high school guys that you've taken in the past so that you can have more room in your class for transfer portal guys? I don't know. Those are all a lot of things that I'm interested to see, and the dynamics certainly change for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss now that kids can come on campus.
Well, last year a lot of it was new staff. It's a COVID shortened season. Everything that everybody knows that happened. You were able to compete in Bama, most notably. Probably played them closer than anybody. Played well in the monsoon without a couple of your key players against LSU. And then you win the Outback Bowl against a good Indiana team that was top 15 in the country. So you showed some flashes of what could be. Now 2021 is where, okay, it can't be, hey, this is what could happen. Now it's where you got to take the next step. You go 5-5 last year, you win, a New Year's Day Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Now is where, okay, you saw what we could do last year. You saw the excitement. You saw the, hey, we're so close. We're almost there. We need you here to help us take that next step. Now you need to take the next step. You got Matt Corral back. This year on the field is paramount. I mean, it's where you got to win 8 games. You got to maybe scare someone or maybe trip someone up and win 9. And I don't think that's too crazy to say, looking at the schedule. With the non-conference slate, I mean, this is where you got to take the next step and say, all right, you guys aren't here yet, but look at what we're doing. So if you come, we can win 10, 11 games, maybe get to Atlanta, compete for the West. Because like you said, the expectation can't just be, all right, let's get to a bowl. Like, no, the expectation is way above that. Kiffin said as much last year in some post-game talks where he was like, we didn't come here to play Alabama close. We came here to beat them. So that's going to help recruiting as well. But, yeah, I mean, dead period being over, having recruits come to see the campus with, there's no more virtual visits. I mean, this is going to be a legitimate, tangible thing that they can show. And I think that the way this staff operates, where they're not pushing for commits, they're going to be very thorough, but I also think they're going to start trying to get real answers from targets where it's like, all right, are you just putting us in a graphic or is it real? Because if not, we're going to move on and go get someone else.
Yeah, no, I think this next step has to be taken over the next 7 months. I think these are critical 7 months. I do.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question about that. That this is a very critical recruiting cycle. They have to recruit at a higher level. And I don't think there's any doubt that what you just said is true. They've got to look different on the field. They've got to be better on the defensive side of the football. They have to show that they weren't a surprise, that they weren't just a one-trick pony, all those kind of things. I agree with you. I think this needs to be a season that the over-under is 7.5, and they need to go over. I mean, 8-4, 8-4, 4-4 in the league, going to a bowl game with momentum would be something that you could recruit to. Obviously, anything above that, and it's even more momentum. But there's no doubt that starting, at least to me, starting June 1, this is a critical. From June 1 to December the 20 the day that is when kids sign in the early period, this is a vital period for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Talk about taking the next step. Somebody that has done that and then some, Lamar Yard, proud sponsor of the Soft Verbal. They're now open in Oxford on South Lamar, 10,000 square feet of indoor space and 3/4 of an acre of outdoor space. Full stage, indoor-outdoor projectors, 3 bars, children's playground, parking on site, and pet-friendly. Go there, open fire barbecue. The quintessential family and pet-friendly venue in Oxford that everyone has been looking forward to is now open. Go see them. Go try the barbecue. Go try the wings. I've heard great things about the wings, and it just looks to be just the perfect venue for the spring and summer. Go see it in person. Go check out everything else at lamaryard.com. Podcast also brought to you by Kelly English Restaurant Group. The renowned chef and his team are offering nationwide shipping. Go check everything out at table22.com/iris for nationwide shipping. Also, irisetc.com. And when you use promo code SoftVerbal21, you get half off your first month of Cooking with Kelly, his virtual cooking class. That's SoftVerbal, all caps, 21, for half off your first month of Cooking with Kelly. And podcast also brought to you by Cherokee Valley Golf Course. If you want to try to win a major at 50 years old, like Phil Mickelson did, you can head on over to Cherokee Valley. They've got putting greens, driving range, and chipping greens to get everything shored up in your golf game. Book a tee time online at olivebranchgolf.com or give them a call at 662-893-4444. Talking about Lane Kiffin and the staff trying to raise that recruiting ranking, maybe have a little security. If you're wanting some security at your home or your business, call Protection Unlimited, the Mid-South's leader in commercial and residential alarm security. Wayne Lowry and his team been serving the greater Memphis and North Mississippi area for 40-plus years. Cutting-edge security for your home or business, video surveillance, monitoring 24/7, 365. Reach them via phone at 901-754-6510 or email them at info@protectionunlimited.com. Neal, one thing I wanted to ask you that's starting to kind of buck its head a little bit, only one that I've seen so far, and I'll have to find his name as I bring this question to you, but we did have a 2022 prospect opt out of his senior year and accept to college. He's a Texas commit. Jaden Blue is his name. Do you anticipate that being somewhat of a trend, or do you think that this might just be a one-time thing where it might just be a particular case for one particular kid?
Yeah, I don't think this is a trend. This is a kid that made a rash decision. There were some things that were happening that were bothering him. He had a frustrating spring on a couple of different levels. He put out a statement that was, bless his heart, we talk about hand raised guy. There needed to be a hand raised guy in that room that goes, hey, if we're going to do this, let's put out a statement that makes a little more sense, that doesn't come across the way that this one does. I anticipate that he will play his senior year. I don't know that he'll play at his school. He might end up at IMG or a place like IMG, but I do think he will play. And no, I don't think this is a trend. And the reason I don't is because for so many guys and girls, you look forward to your senior year. In high school, that has a special significance to it that it doesn't even have at the college level anymore, because so many of the guys that, they go pro. We still have senior day and stuff, but it's a big deal in high school that you look forward to that senior year. You get to be a captain. You get to be, the front of the stretch line. You get to be the first, all the things that you get to be. And I think those are still things that apply to elite prospects. And then, frankly, the number of prospects that are so highly thought of that they could opt out of their senior year and it not hurt them is such a small list. So no, I don't think that becomes a trend. Now, no. The answer to your question is no, I don't. His deal was more personal than it was the other, and then he used the other as sort of an excuse to say things that I think he wanted to say. I'll be honest, I think had this been 30 years ago, pre-internet, this would have been a angry thing that the coaches and everybody would have had to sit down and they would have worked it out, and there would have been some apologies issued to the team and stuff like that. Then everybody would have moved on with their day. And ultimately, I won't be surprised if that's sort of what happens here, or if whatever. But no, to answer your question, I don't. Do you think it will be?
I don't. I mean, like you said, it was just a statement. It wasn't like it's set in stone. I'm done, not playing. He could always recant his statement, go play somewhere else. It could be just an excuse to get out of his high school and transfer somewhere else. Who knows? I don't know. It's a specific prospect who is very good. He is already committed to Texas, so unless Steve Sarkisian, who by rule can't talk about him by name, he can just be very vague and not say anything about Jaden in particular. But honestly, unless they say, hey, you don't have a spot unless you play.
Well, they're not doing that.
Which I don't think they will, but
they won't do that. He's that good.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a trend, but it was something that when I saw it, I was kind of like, oh, well, yes, I do. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a way to prove your worth, whether that's if you're underrated or, if you want to solidify yourself as one of the best players in the class. I mean, I don't know, athletes are wired. You guys talked about it on the show this week about Hoover and how, all right, guys, we don't really need to do anything else to prove, to improve our postseason resume. Like, we kind of have the regional sewn up. But like you said, once you step over the white lines and you start playing, it's hard to turn it off. You're going to compete. You're going to want to win. Most athletes are, they're not okay with just, I'm good. Oh, I'm going to go to class. I'm not going to play football. Like, no, like that itch is going to come back at some point. I would be shocked if Blue ended up playing, whether it's at his high school that he's at now, or if he goes somewhere else. But I don't anticipate it being a trend whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some frustrations on his part with his specific school, maybe even with some of the personnel at his school, some of that stuff, and he handled it like a 17-year-old kid, and he put out an Instagram post that was just ill-advised, and it was. I mean, it was chock full of grammatical errors, and it read really emotional, and he wanted it to sound businesslike, and it comes across sounding like arrogant, and it was just ill-advised is the right term, and it's a shame that somebody wasn't there at that moment to go, hey, and I'm not blaming anybody because it was just a kid posting on Instagram. It's a shame that there wasn't somebody to go, hey, come on, put your phone down, take a step back, let's talk about this. But if we're going to do this, let's make sure that we word it in a way that doesn't make you sound like a jackass. And that didn't happen. So he's taken a little bit of a beating for it, and probably deservedly so. But in the end, I think it'll all be okay. I get what he's saying. If he were a college guy, a college back who says, hey, I'm opting out of the second half of my season because I'm a little banged up and I need to get well, and hey, I'm a running back and you only have so much tread on the tires, that'd be one thing. But when a high school kid does it before his senior year, you really look like a prima donna.
Yeah, look, Neal, Olivia Rodrigo's debut album, it's got a lot of people emotional. It's tugging a lot of heartstrings. So maybe he just, listened to Sour a little too many times and like you said, got emotional. But there might be like 12 people that are going to get that reference on this podcast. But
and I'm not one of the 12, so you'll have to fill me in. I don't.
But yeah, so I don't think it's a trend. And look, he could come back and post an Instagram thing over the weekend and say, hey, JK, so who knows, but yeah, so it was strange. And look, if the kid wants to opt out, hey, cool, man, chill and just work out all the time, and then go to Austin and play running back for Sark. That's cool, but yeah, I don't think that I would do that, whether I was a high level prospect.
About to have a play at no play at the plate. I was watching Pirates.
Random dude, yeah.
Zach, your connection's just not good. I'm trying to figure out what to do about it, if I'm honest. I'll read a couple of ads here. I'll tell you real quick before we reset. We're brought to you by Daniel Barfield Wealth Management. They've been serving individuals and businesses in Oxford and North Mississippi for more than 20 years. Daniel's got CFP and CPA designations and is affiliated with the Advisors Resource Council. He's got offices in Oxford, New Orleans, Dallas, and the surrounding areas. So he and his staff offer comprehensive financial planning, including investment management, estate and tax planning, insurance planning, and business retirement plans. You can get in touch with him at 662-236-6454 or visit his site, barfieldwealthmanagement.com. We are also brought to you by Billy's Small Batch Bacon. My old friend William Stitt has mastered the art of bacon. He spent 3 decades in the restaurant and hospitality business, and bacon is his passion. Billy uses bacon selected from the finest hogs, hand-turned every 2 hours in small batches, rubbed with nitrate-free pink curing salt and brown sugar molasses, and serenaded by local singers and songwriters, not sports writers, my God, that would be horrible, behind the stage at Old 27 Grill, Stitt's Restaurant and Grocery in Fairhope. You'll never eat supermarket bacon again after you get Billy's. It's BILES bacon, BILLES bacon, the BillysBacon.com. Order 5 pounds or more, get a free Billy's Bacon hat. We're also brought to you by Alpha Specialties, located at 1670 Highway 80 in Pearl, Mississippi. It's your trailer-specific professional. If you want to haul it, they can call it. It's the premium trailer dealership in Mississippi. They've got Load Trail. They've also got Hallmark cargo trailers, and they can work with third parties to have game day trailers and concession trailers built just for you. For podcast listeners, Alpha has spare tires and wheels starting at just $100, a full selection of trailer parts and accessories, hitches, winches, straps, and more. They also do all types of truck accessories. Listeners can get 10% off a yearly trailer service and inspection at Alpha's full service shop. So give them a call, 601-932-9798, or check them out at alphaofms.com, and make sure you tell them that you heard about Alpha on the MPW Digital Network of podcast. All right, you back with me, Zach?
Yeah, I might need to reach out to Northeast Spark and see if they can service me in Nashville.
Yeah, you would enjoy the speed of a Spark connection. I can tell you that it hums.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but we're back now. The opt-out thing in high school, I don't know how much I came through, but it's weird. Don't really know any other way to describe it. It's weird.
What are you hearing about first week or so? I know they've got big camps starting that I think it's June 7th and 8th, because this coming Monday is Memorial Day, and then the next day is the start of the it's now a quiet period, meaning you can't go see kids off campus, but you can see them on campus. I think Ole Miss is starting their camps and stuff on the 5th. Is that right? That Saturday? Was that kind of when you expect things to heat up?
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm going to pull up the camp schedule here because they've got tons. But yeah, that first week is when I think they're going to bring a good number of prospects in to go ahead and get a look. And then, it's going to be all kinds of different camps. They're going to have kind of a combine setup, and they're just going to have some 7-on-7. And then a lot of it will be kind of a hybrid camp, but also setup. So they have a lineman camp June 5th, 7-on-7s that same day as well. They've got a kids camp the 9th and the 10th. They have what they call Friday Night Lights. It's on the 4th, the 11th, and the 18th, so 3 consecutive Fridays. And they have a middle school camp as well, 16 and 17. And then somewhere in there, Lane Kiffin will do a ladies' forum as well. So that'll be the first installment of that, since he was unable to do it because of COVID last year. But yeah, so June is going to be jam-packed. A lot of folks out the doors, but yeah, progress through June. That's when you're going to start to see who's a legitimate target, who's not.
What's sort of your plan? How are you going to try to keep up with it in terms of talking to guys about visits and stuff? Because to my knowledge, there's not going to be any in-person. I mean, they can't arrange for coverage, but in the past, we sort of knew when things were going, and we'd kind of hang out a little bit. I don't anticipate doing that this time. I don't get the impression that that's going to be smiled upon. So how are you sort of preparing for that part of it?
Yeah, so been in communication with quite a few of the prospects, whether they're in Mississippi or not. And we talked about social media being a tool. A lot of these players are posting where they're going on social media, so that helps. But I kind of have a general idea, talking with some folks around the program, and you and I talking to people who are kind of, on their radar, big board, whatever you want to call it. So I kind of have an idea of who to keep in touch with. But yeah, most of them are posting it on Twitter where they're going, and then I've reached out to quite a few. So I've got my inbox is pretty full. So I'm going through and sifting through that to see who is coming, when, and where things are going to shake out, where they are on the board. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. Depending on what they do in July, whether that's big unofficial visits or, we covered this on the show before, but I think there's a growing trend of official visits taking place in the summer now, with kids graduating early in December, so they're wanting to go ahead and get it over with. And another thing I think that's a growing sentiment is a lot of these prospects want to have a decision made before their senior season starts, so they can focus on being a senior, enjoying that experience, and not worrying about the recruiting process and taking up all their time. So that's something that I'm going to try to focus on, and then probably plan on trying to get out and anything remotely close to me, trying to either go see some games, try to talk to some players either before or after, and then just reaching out as much as I can when they get to Oxford, when they meet the coaches in person for the first time, when they see the campus, when they see the facilities. I can get more of a organic response from players, where it's not just some, I've seen a video on YouTube. No, they've been to Oxford, they've seen the dorms, they've seen the facilities. That's where I think players are going to be a lot more honest with, hey, I could see myself playing there for the next 3 or 4 years. Or they're going to say, you know what, I don't really like it. So you can kind of, you've done it long enough to where you know where I'm coming from with this. You can kind of tell.
Oh, sure.
The tone of voice with how they talk about certain schools, who's legit, who's not. But that's the plan right now. And then once fall rolls around, big official visit weekends, that'll be something to where you can have an idea of who's legit, who's not.
It's interesting because the general student is making his or her decision. What's the end of this play? Yes, sir. I was watching Cubs Pirates. For some reason, I thought it was the 9th, but it's the 8th. Completely different attitude. I thought that was the last out of the game, but it was the last out of the 8th. If you watch, it's totally different. The 24th out, the 27th out. If you follow kids, they're making their decisions academically a lot earlier in the process than they used to, and so it stands to reason that their colleagues who are making decisions athletically, who have options, want to make those decisions early as well. So that stands to reason. I don't think that, from what I've heard, that Ole Miss is going to do a lot of official visits in the summer. I still think they're going to wait and do theirs during the season, and then right after the season in that early period. But with so many kids signing in December now, that changes that game some too. Larry Joe says, if they start talking about the differences between buckets and bags, that school's in play. I don't know. I'm not getting all that. Here's the thing about the other thing with kids now is the NLI stuff's coming out. That's going to be talked about. We've talked about this ad nauseum on this show. I don't really want to dive into it too much again today, but I think schools are going to have to recruit kids in a way that acknowledges, hey, there's some opportunities for you with NLI, but they're going to have to be careful not to overpromise what NLI is going to bring, because I don't know that the schools exactly know yet. I don't know. Just it's a totally different environment after a year of 15 months of weird, and now with all the different things that are out there, and kids communicate with each other. But yes, you're exactly right. There's a big difference between talking to a kid after a visit, how'd it go, and you can kind of get a feel for voice tone and stuff like that. You can certainly, if it's in person, you get to talk to them, you know a lot. You know a whole lot.
Yeah.
But they can trick you with text and stuff, and although you can sometimes tell just by the speed of a return of a text or a DM or whatnot. But yeah, you know this from dealing with me. When the kid puts out the list of, hey, I'm down to 17 schools, I'm like, oh, stop. Holler at me when you're down to 3. Nobody seriously considers 10 schools, 12 schools. That's, hey, I want to put out an edit. I've got all these offers. I want to make sure that everybody knows I've got these offers. And I don't blame a kid for that, by the way. But when they put out the top 10 and somebody at another network goes, here's a story opportunity. Joe Smith said he's down to 12 schools and Ole Miss is one of the 12. So, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything, because unless you're first or second or maybe even third on that 12, you're not really being considered. You just have a graphic that he wanted to put in his edit. So yeah, when Now kids will be taking visits, and if they spend a day and a half at school X, and afterwards you reach out to them, you'll know. Because if let's say a kid visits Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and Mississippi State in a 4-day period. If the only reporter that he talks to is the Auburn reporter, got a pretty solid hunch that Auburn's the leader. If the only one he talks to is Alabama, same thing. The only one he talks to is Ole Miss, same thing. If he talks to all four, okay, this might be a kid that's really taking his time and looking at some schools, and we haven't been able to do that in a while because you never – kids, if you honestly had a conversation with the kid about, hey, I heard you took a kind of a Zoom visit, if they knew you at all, or they knew someone with you, or you knew like a high school coach and you asked, they'd be like, yeah, he's taking 20 Zoom visits. They're all the same. He turns his camera off half the time. It's boring. So that will be the interesting part to get back to that place. Speaking of interesting, the Soft Verbal is presented by Jennings Executive Search. Jennings specializes in the recruitment of accounting, finance, strategy, corporate development, and data science professionals from the staff to C-level in all industries. Whether you're a small business owner who needs a finance leader, you work in private equity, or you run a team at a Fortune 500 company, John and his recruitment team of former public accountants will simplify the process by presenting you with a short list of only the most qualified candidates. John works on a contingent basis, meaning no hire, no fee, and he will in no way interfere with your own recruitment efforts. To learn more, search him up on LinkedIn. It's John, Jon Jennings, or email him at john@jenningsexec.com, or call 404-536-3000. We're brought to you by Muddy Water Camo. There's more than just the cold weather gear there at Muddy Water Camo. They've got lots of the fishing stuff. As you start getting out and enjoying some of the hot weather outdoors things, check out muddywateroutdoors.com for more information on all of the great stuff at Muddy Water Camo. And we're brought to you by Joey Erickson, Herring Gear Chevrolet. Let him help you find the vehicle you're looking for at a price you can afford. Choose from a full selection of new Chevrolet vehicles, or get a great deal on numerous brands of reliable pre-owned vehicles. Give Joey a call or text on his cell at 662-571-2367. Tell him what you're looking for, or stop by 1685 High Street in Jackson to test drive that new or used vehicle you've been wanting. Let him earn your business. Make sure you tell him you heard about his ad on this show or on the Oxford Exxon podcast, and with any purchased vehicle, you get a $50 gas card. What else going on, Zach? Anything? Just full disclosure, we're having loads of internet issues today on this show. Apologize for that. It's one of those things that happens. Nobody's fault. It's just sometimes it happens. One connection is super fast and one isn't on that day, and the systems just don't jive very well.
Before this thing explodes and I pull my hair out, also want to remind you, podcasts also brought to you by Bluff City Advisory Group, Memphis's leading team of finance professionals. Former Ole Miss Rebel Ben Still and his team are making it their goal to help you meet the ongoing demands of your financial needs. Learn about them and more at bluffcityadvisory.com. Podcast also brought to you by the Berry Home Team. If you've ever been in a situation and you don't know the lingo, buying or selling a house, you don't want to be in the dark, because it could cost you thousands. So whether it's escrow, escalation clauses, special stipulations, waiving the right to appraise, pre-approval, pre-qualification, Rick and Stacy Berry will get you squared away. They will give you all of the definitions of all of those words and more, guidelines, guidance, all that good stuff. Both are part of the multi-million-dollar club of Keller Williams Realty, and you can get with them at theberryhometeam.com or call them 901-481-6420 and get into a new home or investment property today. After that, give a call to Sal Creek Title, the Mid-South's leader in client-focused, innovative closing solutions. Neal Hanna and his team are more than just a real estate closing firm. They are dedicated to going the distance to ensure the ease and growth of your real estate business. Find out more information at saddlecreektitle.com. Podcast also brought to you by Transamerica Insurance, rated best term life insurance company in 2020 by Forbes magazine. They offer 10, 20, and 30-year term life insurance catered to your individual needs. Call and get a free quote with Drew Moak at 601-953-8449, licensed in Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. Also, podcast brought to you by Davis McCord State Farm. Good neighbor service, surprisingly great rates. Look no further than Davis McCord and State Farm. One-stop shop in Tennessee and Mississippi. Call him 901-755-6110 for your surprisingly great rates today. All right, Neal, last thing. Lightning round predictions for the NBA playoffs.
All right.
That I've watched zero of.
Okay. I've watched a good bit of it, actually. Really
so
interested. Really interested in tonight's game.
Last night.
Yeah, Grizzlies got beat last night, but they're in good shape. 1-1.
Ja did everything he could. I think it's 7. Wasn't enough. Go back home. Like you said, they got 1, so that's all you can ask for on the road when you're the 8 seed playing against the 1. But we'll see. FedEx Forum, 57% capacity. No tougher place to play.
I think Memphis is going to get at least one of the next 2, probably just one of the next 2. I think it's going to be I've said this a lot, and the more that I watch it, the more I think it's going to happen maybe the exact same way. This reminds me so much of Thunder 2010 when they were just getting started. They weren't ready yet. They weren't there yet. You could tell they weren't there yet, but you could see that they're coming. You could see that the future is bright. It was the first taste of playoffs against a veteran team. That Laker team had Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol and Derek Fisher and all those cats that had proven themselves in the postseason. And this Utah team, while they don't have a title, Gobert and Ingles and Mitchell and Conley and all those guys, they've played a lot of playoff basketball in their time. I think Utah's going to win in 6. I think this is the beginning of something special for Memphis. But it's interesting because Utah has no one who can guard Ja. They can't stay in front of him. They can't guard him. Now, on the other side, Valanciunas is the only guy on the Grizzly roster who can handle Gobert at all. And when he's not on the floor, or if he's not effective, Gobert is eating them alive on both ends. Gobert's that good, and it's a problem. You know, I was listening to a podcast yesterday about the Thunder, but they started talking about the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are in that weird spot where they're probably one piece away from being a real contender, and yet how you go find that piece is going to be hard. What's going to be interesting for Memphis is as the landscape in the NBA changes, is there a star who looks at Memphis and says, yeah, small market, but you know what? I want to play with Morant, and I want to play with Jackson and Brooks and Valanciunas and those guys. I want to be that piece that gets them over the title. I want to see if I can't chase a deep playoff run, chase a ring. Oklahoma City's been in that spot before, and they never could get the guy, and then they ultimately lost the guy. Whether Memphis can do it, it'll be interesting. But I think guys in the NBA are paying attention to what is happening in Memphis, and they've noticed this, beating the Spurs, beating the Warriors, now splitting the 2 games at home against Utah. It's going to be fun. If I'm a Grizzlies fan, I'm getting my tickets for the next couple of years because it's going to be. I don't think there's any question. It's about to be a lot of fun there.
Yeah, I think they're one piece away. Who knows? Maybe Kawhi Leonard will go over there since he keeps bouncing around.
I think Kawhi's going to the Knicks. I do, and I think he knows he's going to the Knicks. I think the Clippers are a mess. You talk about games that are interesting. Tonight is really interesting, Zach. because if the Clippers lose tonight to go down 3-0 against Luka and the Mavs, they're not going to win the series. There's no chance they come back from 3-0. And if Kawhi opts out, they don't have any of their picks for the next 5 years. The Clippers don't. They're in trouble.
I think they're done. Jason Tatum is as good as anybody in the league, but I think the Celtics are in trouble. I think the Wizards are done. They might get one, but the Sixers are good.
Yeah, the Sixers are really good. The Bucks are really good. The Bucks are better than people thought they were. They've been biding their time. I know some NBA people who tell you that this has been one of those weird years. They've played in empty arenas. They've played every other day in the second half, just cramming in a schedule. They've been tested and tested and tested, and they've had to be isolated in their rooms. The season's been tedious. And now the playoffs are here, and we're seeing some of these teams go, okay, I'm going to turn it on now. And some of them have. And you mentioned Tatum. Tatum's a guy that I'm really interested to see. Does he get disgruntled? Does he look at the situation in Boston and go, this sucks? Yeah. This sucks. I want out. I'm going to get out of here. That's the kind of guy that if you're Memphis, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, a team who feels like, hey, the future's really bright, we're just a couple pieces away.
If you add Tatum to the Grizzlies,
yeah, what would you have to give up for him? I don't know what Memphis's draft pick situation is. Could they do it without trading Jaren Jackson Jr.? I don't know. That's what's kind of interesting. It's going to be an interesting postseason though, because it's going to be another short one. Guys are tired. The whole deal, and some of these guys that have been on teams that they thought would be contenders and they're not. They're going to ask out. So that'll be. But Memphis is not one of those teams. Memphis, no matter what happens in this first round, whether they lose in 5 or lose in 6 or lose in 7 or whatever, win the series, their future's super bright, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap there. We'll be back next week. When we come back next week, will be the first time since we've been doing this show and forever that we won't be able to use the words dead period. The dead period will be over. And we'll have some raise the roof. We'll have some ability to actually talk about kids who've been on campus, and all of that. So until next time, again, thanks to the College Corner. Thanks to Zach. I'm Neal. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll talk to you soon.